All right, now we're going to take a look at the third free essay from this exam pack that I'm going to annotate for YouTube. Now, I have the rest of these essays that you see in this list available as part of an essay pack that the link to order will be in the video information shortly. So these three yellow highlighted essays I'll cover in YouTube. The others, you can download this file and um, take a look for yourself. So let me jump to, all right, I'm going to jump to this essay. Discuss the effectiveness of lowering the rate of interest in order to stimulate growth, June 2011. The rate of interest is the cost of borrowing and the reward for saving. The main monetary instrument is the rate of interest, and the Bank of England can decide to change it. Economic growth is the rate of change of output, shown by an increase in real GDP. Economic growth is one of the main government's objectives. It's one of the government's main objectives. So we've addressed what is the rate of interest and growth. Let's take a look at this graph. We have price level, real GDP, output labeled AD and AD2. Good. We're going to need to explain this if we want to get some more analysis. The diagram above illustrates the effect of a reduction in the interest rate. A lowering of the interest rate means that the charge for borrowing money decreases, so it is cheaper for consumers to borrow money, and there will be no reason for them to save as reward for savings are low. Not true. There will be less of an incentive for them to save. Right? You don't want to say there's no reason. People still have reasons to save even when interest rates are low, but there's less of an incentive as a reward for savings are low. Okay. This leads to an increase in consumers' real disposable income. This leads to an increase in the likelihood, I would say. Well, actually, this is true. It does lead to an increase in real disposable income because if you were paying back a loan before at a high interest rate, now it's lower, you have more money in your pocket. Because of low interest rates, consumers can now spend and firms are more likely to invest. So this will are more likely to. You'll see what I'm doing here is I'm writing in things that you guys should be aware of. Like don't say definites like they will or they must or they won't. They're more likely to or less likely to. This is better language because it's not absolute. So this will have an impact on consumption and investment. They are both components of aggregate demand, hence increasing aggregate demand, shifting the AD curve to the right from AD to AD2. This leads to an increase in the real GDP, meaning an increase in economic growth is shown by the increase from Y to Y2 that matches. In addition, the increase from Y to Y2 also shows an increase in real output, decreasing unemployment, which is also beneficial for the economy. However, this will result in a trade-off. We can see price level is going to go up. As the diagram shows, the increase of the price level from PL to PL2 suggests an increase in inflation. This inflation could be caused by the increase in demand if an economy is already operating close to full capacity. Good. As consumers are more able to spend the money on goods and services, this in turn may lead to an increase in demand pull inflation where demand exceeds and pull prices up. We're aggregate. So we're talking about going from 80 to 82 is great, but if it goes further along this curve, then we could just see a rise in the price level without much increase in output. Let's see, so the reduction in interest is likely to increase the other components of aggregate demand. This will lead to the multiplier effect where the change in AD leads to a larger change in GDP, indicating economic growth. In addition, it may also increase aggregate supply, anticipating with the higher consumer expenditure as there is already an increase in AD. That's a possibility. AS may very well increase. All right, the effectiveness of lowering the interest rate depends upon, here's our evaluation, how much the reduction rate is and the size of the change. A small change will have no impact as opposed to a large change, creating a bigger impact which may change consumer habits. It also depends on how low the interest rate is already. For example, the UK's interest rate is already at 0.5%, so this was probably a little bit older. So it cannot go any lower as the central bank has little room to reduce it further. The increase in AD may increase firms' costs of production, which may contribute towards cost push inflation. AD could continue to rise if consumers and producers are optimistic about the future. On the other hand, a lowering of the interest rate may not guarantee higher growth because there may be a lack of consumer confidence, and it depends on consumers' propensity to spend. The effective interest rates do not fall on everyone equally. Excellent point. Strong evaluation. point after point made and clearly explained. The change of interest rates depends on accurate and up-to-date information. A central bank is restricted by the interest rates of other central banks. However, a benefit of lowering interest rates is that there will be less political influence and decisions are likely to be in the best interest of the economy. Interest rates being determined by a central bank should be able um, to ensure that these decisions are being made in the best interest of the economy and away from government, because we actually should explain here that the central bank is somewhat independent of government. On balance, a reduction in the interest rate can stimulate growth depending on how low the interest rate is already at. However, we can investigate other methods in order to get a final result of stimulating growth. Okay, now we're going to say we can also explore alternatives to this approach, which is a great evaluative measure. In order to stimulate growth, fiscal policy may be a more fitting policy to do so. A drop in the interest rate, monetary policy, is unlikely to increase aggregate supply unless it leads to more investment, which increases productive potential. Reflationary fiscal policy increases aggregate demand. This may be a better way, as it involves government spending and a reduction of direct taxes, potentially increasing aggregate supply in the long run. An excellent essay leaving little to be desired, thorough and relevant analysis, all required evaluation, well structured, with no mistakes in spelling and grammar. I would actually change that with few mistakes in spelling and grammar. Appropriately use and analyze diagram. There is some that I would say is still missing from this essay, but I pointed those things out to you. Generally, the essay is quite strong. The tweaks I made would probably guarantee that it's an 18. If I wanted to be harsh, I would say this is a 16, but I think let's go with a 17 because I feel like that will be a more accurate representation of what they've earned.